What's up, guys? I'm Chris Spags here, back with another Four Corners video breaking down tonight's NBA slate in the fastest way possible, courtesy of Awesemo.com. We've got 7 games in front of us today. Some of them may project to be blowout risks, but we're going to try to find the best value that we can. Make sure to hit the like button down below and leave a comment telling me which pick or which game you're looking at the most so far on the slate. Comments and likes help us out quite a bit, so please support this new video series. Throw us a like and a comment down below right now. First game I'm looking at today, a matchup with the Spurs visiting the Warriors, one in which DeMar DeRozan and LaMarcus Aldridge have both been ruled out. Warriors are a 14-point favorite at home, so this one really does, on paper, have a pretty big blowout risk according to Las Vegas. However, obviously the usage being left behind with DeRozan and Aldridge out does give a pretty decent opportunity here for the Spurs, especially if they're able to hang into this one and keep it close with the Warriors, again, despite this gigantic spread that we're seeing from the Vegas line. Marco Bellinelli and Davis Bertans are looking to be two of the highest owned players on the slate according to our ownership projections at Awesemo.com. They're at 38% and 30% ownership respectively, so they're going to be good value plays today potentially, but they also are going to be ones that come with a lot of the field riding alongside you. I don't mind either guy. They've both been around 1 fantasy point per minute in time on the court without DeRozan and Aldridge in the lineup. But again, with that being such highly owned of an option, it might be a little bit more logical to look elsewhere for at least a portion of your lineups. One guy projected for less ownership on the slate is Rudy Gay. And Rudy Gay has actually been a monster when he's been on the court without Aldridge and DeRozan, and also without Derek White. One guy projected for a bit less ownership is Rudy Gay. Rudy Gay actually jumps out as a guy who could be the best play on the side for the Spurs. He's averaged 1.38 fantasy points per minute in court time without LaMarcus Aldridge and DeMar DeRozan in the lineup. He's averaged 1.62 fantasy points per minute in time where those guys aren't available, as well as Derek White, who's also out this game with plantar fascia issues. Should keep him out until the All-Star break. Now, the Warriors are going to key in on Rudy Gay. There really isn't anybody else offensively who they have to worry about unless those Bertans, Bellinelli, Patty Mills tier guys hit shots. But Gay is going to have a pretty good opportunity. All the usage he can handle. It's just a matter of whether he can keep it going versus the Warriors team who's going to know he's coming. As I just mentioned with Patty Mills, he's another guy who jumps out 1.03 fantasy points per minute in a much larger sample size without DeRozan, Aldridge, and Derek White. On the other side, it's hard to trust the Warriors, as I've talked about in a couple of videos I've done for Awesemo.com. The usage rate for these guys is just tough, with it seeming a little bit too fluid, and really only one guy out of the big 3 of Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, and Kevin Durant able to go off at any given time. So I actually like DeMarcus Cousins quite a bit here, with no real center of note on the Spurs side. You might see some more Jakob Poeltl tonight. You may see some extra minutes for Pau Gasol, though really it's hard to see him getting a ton of run. But neither of those guys is going to match up well with DeMarcus Cousins, and we know DeMarcus Cousins is going to get his 25 minutes, which seems to be his minute cap rate. He plays into the 4th quarter each time. It looks like he should get his run here, even if the game does blow out. Draymond Green, I don't mind as well, but I think for the blowout risk reasons, I'd be a little bit less inclined for those guys outside of DeMarcus Cousins. The next corner I want to hit on here, a game with the Rockets and the Kings in which there is a 235.5 combined total, which represents a pretty big boost on the season average for the Rockets and a slightly less big one for the Kings. James Harden's the first guy I'd want to look at here. About a quarter of the field is currently projected to own him in lineups today on DraftKings. And overall, I think that seems about right to me. It might go a little bit above that. But he's been good. His usage has been steady despite Chris Paul's return to the lineup and his minutes on the rise. I think Harden's about as secure of a play as you're going to find tonight. Whether he hits enough upside for you in a tournament, it's hard to say. But I do think in terms of a cash game play and a play with some upside, Harden makes a lot of sense. Kenneth Faried's a guy who a lot of people may be uncomfortable with his price pretty close to its ceiling, but again, he's going against a Kings team who gives up 48.1 boards per game, a slate high amount of rebounds allowed there. Kenneth Faried's been good. I don't really see anybody on the Kings who's going to be able to limit him too much. If he wants to keep it going, especially in a pace-up spot, he can really crash the boards, create a lot of opportunity for himself, as well as get some easy buckets on the run from Harden or Paul. Eric Gordon's going to be back in the lineup today, and even though he's a points-dependent scorer, this is a nice spot for him with his price down a bit. Again, he could miss his shots. He might not have a day. Chris Paul could take some more off the table. Harden, PJ Tucker even could hit a few more shots and take that away from him. But Gordon's a decent enough play, I think is worth mentioning here. Marvin Bagley is the first guy I want to talk about on the Kings side. He's projected to be one of the highest owned players on the slate at 27% projected ownership right now as of midday on the West Coast. It is an interesting spot for him. He's had over 30 minutes in the last 2 games and has also been seeing crunch time run recently, which is going to help his prospects quite a bit. One guy who could be a pivot to Bagley at least slightly less ownership is Willie Cauley-Stein. Again, there's no true center on the Rockets side. It's Kenneth Faried in there, so Willie Cauley-Stein could have a good day inside, and he's going to get that first crack, so he may be able to keep it hot enough where Bagley gets a little bit less run down the stretch, though it has been a situation where both guys have seen 4th quarter run together alongside one another. Buddy Hield would be the last King who I'm interested in at a high level. I think he's the guy who would be most inclined to duel back and forth with Harden if the scoring does get out of hand, and there's really nobody defensively who should be able to keep Buddy Hield from doing what he does if his shot's falling. De'Aaron Fox, I worry about a little with the matchup with Chris Paul, even though Chris Paul is much older. De'Aaron Fox much more athletic, but I just don't see him picking up a ton of usage here, whereas Hield, I could definitely see wanting to force the action quite a bit. One guy I'm conditionally interested in, and I think it depends on how the Kings approach this one, is Bogdan Bogdanovic. His minutes have been down a bit as Iman Shumpert's gotten more run, and Shumpert will get the first crack here, offering up some defense, hopefully to counter James Harden for the Kings. But I think if the game gets out of hand and the Rockets start scoring early, you could see more run for Bogdan Bogdanovic as well as more playmaking opportunities, and I think that's a little bit interesting here, even though it's hard to trust him with where his minutes have been recently, about 20 in his last couple games. Our next corner to hit on is a game with the Wizards and the Bucks, one that has a 230 combined total, but one in which the Bucks are favored by 11 points at home. But the big question here, as my dog changes positions behind me in the background, is whether the Wizards can keep this one close. Defensively, the Wizards have done a better job slowing teams down, largely thanks to their wing defense improving quite a bit in the recent weeks, with Trevor Ariza, Otto Porter, and Jeff Green all in the lineup doing a decent job. Offensively, it's going to be all hands on deck for the Wizards here. Bradley Beal's the first guy you look at, but I think some of the fringe pieces might be a bit more appealing. Tomas Satoransky is a guy I talked about in the last Four Corners video. I like him in this matchup too. I think his playmaking ability to get shots for his teammate is going to be an asset. I think he's also going to get some looks himself from three. Again, this Bucks team gives up the most threes in the league, at least the most three attempts in the league, and it's a matter of whether Satoransky can hit them or not. I think his opportunity here is pretty big, and at currently under 5% projected ownership, could be a very interesting play. Otto Porter's projected for quite a bit of ownership. I think he's a fine play. I am actually a little bit more interested in Trevor Ariza. I think his defense is going to be needed. And again, he's going to be able to shoot some threes, get some looks. Shot quite a bit of times in that last game. I think 19 times overall. So it's going to be a nice spot for him if he keeps up that usage and that run of minutes where he saw 43 minutes in that last game for the Wizards. Other guy I mentioned last time for the Wizards, who again is very relevant, Jeff Green, coming off the bench, is seeing a ton of usage. He shot 16, 17, and 19 times in his last 3 games. He's going to need to score here versus the Bucks to keep it close, and the Bucks' second unit just less impressive all around defensively. As is usually the case, Giannis Antetokounmpo is a hardened pivot with upside. In this pace-up spot versus the Wizards, who are also a very bad rebounding team, Giannis could feast inside and also dive into the lane repeatedly and just kill them over and over again. Chris Middleton, Eric Bledsoe, and Malcolm Brogdon are always kind of similar plays to me. They have upside if a game stays close. They're at reasonable prices. I think I would favor Bledsoe slightly here, but Middleton also looks pretty good. Brogdon, a little bit of a lower ceiling play, but a fine enough one. I would play these guys if you're loading up on the game. I would play these guys if you're fading Giannis and loading up on the game. But overall, I think they're a little bit risky to plug into lineups as one-off. Another guy I want to mention is Brook Lopez. He's been something of a forgotten man recently, and the Wizards actually allow 47.8 boards per game, as well as a slate high 37.2% from deep. So you know that Brook Lopez is going to at least have a shot here, and versus Thomas Bryant, who's not a great defender, or at least one who's going to be able to match up Lopez on the outside as well as keep him off the interior. I think Lopez could be in a good spot at very low ownership. But again, it is the Wizards, so there is some blowout risk here. So exercise some caution, but I think this could be a game stack that's going to be lower owned because a lot of people are just going to think the Wizards are going to get steamrolled here on the road at Milwaukee. The last game I want to talk about here is one with the Pelicans visiting the Bulls, which has a 226.5 combined total from Vegas right now, one in which the Bulls are getting a 12-point boost on their season average. Zach LaVine and Lauri Markkanen are both projected for over 20% ownership according to our projections at Awesemo.com. So you're going to want to have some exposure to these guys, I think, with a good shot of this game staying close. LaVine has been over 40 fantasy points in 2 out of his last 4, whereas Markkanen has been above 42.25 in 3 out of the last 4. So you know that these guys are going to get a pretty decent opportunity, if nothing else. It's a pace-up spot, and one in which the Bulls have actually looked more competent than people may realize. Bobby Portis is a bit less secure in terms of his minutes, but recently he's shown some pretty good upside. In his last 2 games, he's had a 44% and 35% usage rate, and he also got fourth quarter run in that last game. So if Bobby Portis keeps that up, and he does see that fourth quarter run here, he could have a really big day versus a Pelicans unit who's obviously been pretty short-handed on the big side. Anthony Davis and everybody else in the lineup started getting hurt. Julius Randle is a game-time decision. That's going to be some news that you're going to watch out closely for as we get closer to lock. If Julius Randle's in, he really could destroy the Bulls inside. But if he's out, looks like a much better play for both Kenrich Williams and for Cheick Diallo. 2 guys who've gotten big minutes recently. Kenrich Williams' usage has actually been up. He shot 13 times last game, which is a pretty big number for him. That could continue to rise. That was his first start as well. So again, these numbers can go up for them, but only if Randle is out. Jahlil Okafor is another player who looks better with Randle out of the lineup, but if he's in, he still could be a fine play here. We saw Jahlil Okafor put up 30 fantasy points in the first half last game versus a much tougher Pacers team inside, and if Okafor just gets rolling, he gets his offensive boards, gets some easy putbacks and easy buckets, he really can put up points fast versus a Bulls team who's just very bad and gives up a ton of rebounds inside, especially since Wendell Carter went out. Okafor could have a big day here, whether Randle's in the lineup or whether he's not. The backcourt's a little bit less interesting for me for the Pelicans. We saw what happened with Frank Jackson as a popular play last last time. He's not a guy you want to trust, even though he could have some upside if he does shoot and has some success shooting. But Drew Holiday is really somebody I want to talk about. He hasn't shot a lot more than he did despite all his injuries. His 25% usage rate over the last few games is just right in line with where he's been on the season. So he's allowing these other guys to get their opportunity. He's deferring quite a bit, which is fine. But as a $9,000 player on DraftKings, I really don't want to pay up for a guy who's going to defer and allow guys like Kenrick Williams or Czech Diallo to get shots inside. And about Frank Jackson, he lost minutes to Ian Clark down the stretch in the second half of the last game for the Pelicans. He's not a guy I'm super comfortable with, but if you want to have a contrarian play, hope that he bounces back, then sure, go for it. Frank Jackson continues to exist. So there we have it. Those are my thoughts on today's NBA slate and these here 4 corners. So make sure to hit that like button and leave a comment down below telling me which plays you agree with, which plays you don't. Tell me about what your favorite game stack is on the night. I want to know what you guys are thinking because it helps me decide what I should be covering here in this video. So make sure to hit that like button and comment down below right now. And of course, check the promo code I'm also going to drop in right here. It'll give you 50% off of your first month at Awesemo.com. So you get all the ownership projections, which I reference in this video, as well as rankings from Awesemo, projections from Josh Engelman, rankings from Fast Eddie Fear. You get a lot of content there. The deep dive as well, a fantastic column. That's a great side accessory to my Switch and Hedge column every day, which is free. So go check the stuff out. 50% off your first month with the promo code Switch and Hedge. Use it right now. Get in there. I'll be back again soon with another 4 corners video breaking down the NBA slate. So good luck.